Hey everyone, my name is Lydia and this is what I wish they taught me about econometrics and introduction. In the previous video, we saw multicollinearity makes estimates imprecise, and we also compared that to omitted variable bias, another concept with which it's usually confused with. Now the question is, how do we detect it in practice? And there are several ways, from simple correlation checks to formal tests. So we'll build up from intuition to the standard tool, which is the VIF, or otherwise called the variance inflation factor. For simplicity, I'll be calling it the VIF everywhere throughout the video. Multicollinearity happens when regressors overlap in information. So what we have is two variables that are telling us almost the same story. Two variables. Almost or mostly the same story. So regression struggles to separate their individual effects. Think of it like this. If education and experience both increase with age, then it becomes hard to tell which of the two is the one driving income. Now, the data contains the combined effect, but not enough independent variation to separate them. So the data. So what does it look like in an output? Classic signs in your regression output would be large standard errors on individual coefficients. You're going to see individually insignificant coefficients. And ultimately, you will see also a high R squared. So the model explains the Y very well overall, but no individual variable appears to matter. So that combination is a red flag for multicollinearity, okay? This is the classic symptom, basically. The model works, but nothing seems significant, okay? Usually, especially when writing dissertations, students often panic and they think that their results are wrong. But the model may be fine, it's just imprecise. Now, what is a quick first check? Do a correlation matrix, look at the correlations between the regressors. Say, if two variables have a correlation of 0.8 or 0.9, well, that's a warning sign. But pairwise correlation, while being your first and easiest check, so pairwise correlation, is also not a complete test, okay? Multicollinearity can exist between 3 or more variables. So even when no two of them are highly correlated in pairs, that doesn't mean that 3 of them are actually quite highly correlated among the 3 of them. This is why you need a more powerful tool, one that can capture the combined overlap across all regressors simultaneously. And as mentioned at the beginning of the video, that tool is the VIF, okay? So the VIF measures how much of the variance of a coefficient is inflated. due to correlation with other regressors. Okay, so the name by itself tells you exactly what it does, and it quantifies the inflation invariance caused by multicollinearity. There is a formula for it. So for variable xj, then the VIF of that particular variable is just 1 over 1 minus rj squared. And keep in mind, I'm adding the j in here because you have to be careful that rj is not the r square of your entire regression, but it's actually the, or it's from the regression of xj on all other regressors. So keep in mind here, we don't have the y included, but it's a regression of that particular variable that you think is highly correlated with other variable on all of these other variables, okay? This auxiliary regression is asking how well can the other variables predict this variable xj, basically. And if the r squared j is high, it means, well, the other variables explain xj quite well, which means that xj has very little independent variation left. And that's exactly when its coefficient becomes imprecise, okay? This connects directly to another concept that we have seen in another video, the Frisch-Lovell theorem. If you remember, the beta hat j was identified from the residual variation in xj after partialing out the other regressors. So if rj squared in here is high, it means those residuals are very tiny, so almost no independent variation left, and the coefficient is estimated very imprecisely. What about interpretations of the VIF? So usually you can have cases where the VIF is approximately 1, which means that you have no multicollinearity. If you have a VIF that is bigger than 5, there is moderate concern. Keep in mind, these are not bulletproof benchmarks, so sometimes you will be asked to keep in mind based on what you're studying other types of benchmarks. These are just like some very broad and generically accepted ones. There's also, if a VIF is clearly bigger than 10, then you definitely have a serious problem. Most of the times, especially in dissertations, also because context matters. A VIF of 6 in general in a large data set may be less concerning than a VIF of 6 in a small data set. There's also fields that use stricter thresholds like 4 and some looser ones. So what matters is the combination of VIF and your sample size, and also always make sure what are accepted benchmarks or rules of thumbs in your department. Now, what is the intuition between this VIF? So if xj can be almost perfectly predicted by the other regressors, it means it contributes very little information to the regression, which means OLS needs variation in the xj that is unrelated to other variables in order for the coefficient to be identified. And if that independent variation is tiny, then the coefficient is going to be unstable, which means that even a small change in the data could flip the sign or double the magnitude, which is a real danger. And if you very clearly have severe multicollinearity in here. Keep in mind also that while the VIF is answering questions such as how much harder is it to estimate the coefficient based on its overlap with other variables, There's also other tests, and there's also other things that you can do in general. You can also take the square root of the VIF to get the standard error inflation factor that tells you how many times larger the standard error is compared to the no multicollinearity case. Okay? So overall, multicollinearity is detected via F, which measures how much a variable's variance is inflated by its overlap with other regressors, with values above 10 indicating a serious problem. I hope this video was helpful, and I'll see you in the next one.